Okay, it's not going yet, but it will any second now. Let's see that little button. Oh, there it is. Yes, we are live. So, hello everybody. Everybody who's at home again, because that is the world we live in now. We do everything from home in our pajama bottoms. I'm today wearing some really cute bike shorts because I did yoga earlier. Today, though, I have one of my favorite people on the whole entire planet. And her name is Jeanne Powe. And Jeanne, I remember, I don't remember where it was the first time I met you. It was either ASBA or NSBA, one of the two. But I remember immediately just kind of being blown away by her knowledge, her wisdom, her perspective, and thinking to myself, this is somebody that I need to really listen to and pay attention to because she has done it all. And she is probably one of the strongest advocates at the school board level, actually at any elected position level, because, I say just at the school board level, but these school board races are incredibly important. And Jeanne Powe exemplifies the importance of these races and why we need diverse representation and specifically representation from people of color on our boards. Because in many of our, Balsz School District is right next to the Creighton School District. And we have a lot of kids who even go back and forth from district to district. She has a huge shelter in her district. And so everything that Jeanne Powe says, I try to listen to, and I make sure that I try to model my school board work after Jeanne. So Jeanne, thank you so much for coming on today. I know you're very busy. First of all, how are you?
I'm well given the circumstances. Thank you so much, Jeanne Casteen, my neighbor over in the Creighton School District, sharing students all the time. But
Yep.
thank you for having me on. And I think it's really important to center school board members so that we can help explain to the community who we are, how we function, what's our purpose, and how we are working to make our students have a better educational experience.
Yep. And that's our entire focus. So, Chanel, go ahead and give us a little bit of background about yourself, who you are, where you come from, and what makes you tick.
Oh, okay. Well, first of all, hello everybody, and shout out to all of our supporters, who have tuned in to today's conversation. If you do not know me, my name is Jeanne Powe, and I am an elected school board member. I've been on the Balsz Elementary School District Governing Board for about 7 years now. And initially, what inspired me to run for office is I'm a mother of a child. I have a son. And ever since I have enrolled my child, in Head Start, we have dealt with systemic racism, we have dealt with mistreatment, we have dealt with being over disciplined. I was a really engaged parent. I was a single parent who had to work a job where I had to always be prepared to take off, not knowing when the school was going to call me in my child's elementary educational experience to come pick him up for whatever reason. Um, when I started, well, when I re-engaged, well, when I initially got engaged in terms of politics, a lot of us were invigorated by President Barack Obama and his bid for the White House and even serving his first term. And I was living here in Phoenix as he was preparing for his reelection. That's when I had an opportunity to. I was working downtown. I was working with the Black Chamber of Commerce, and I was their membership outreach director. And I remember being downtown one day, and there was a protest. There were like medical students, and they had on their white coats, and they were like, healthcare reform now. And I'm like, well, you know what? I used to do insurance. And I remember the conversations that I would have with families about making those tough decisions to purchase your prescription pills or whether to put food on the table. So it really resonated with me. So I ended up getting engaged with Organizing for America. I was a fellow there. And due to my involvement, we started coming up on city and county elections. And it was before no time I ended up getting integrated into volunteering with the Democratic Party and have served in a variety of different roles. My first role was like in 2010. I served on the African American Caucus as a secretary. In 2016 or 17, I served on the Maricopa County Democratic Party as the Sergeant at Arms, and have helped countless candidates win their elections. And it's always out every single election season to engage voters, whether it's centered around ballot initiatives, variety of candidates, or even my own election.
That's important. Those are important skills to have, to be able to bring people together and have the right networks. So yeah, you're one of those people, like I said, who's kind of done it all and helped in so many different capacities to change your little corner of the world. And you've really done a phenomenal job. So I'd like to talk about how
Yeah.
you were able to, in the Balsz School District, first give us kind of an overview about Balsz. What are the
Sure.
boundaries? How many schools do you guys have? And what are some of the things that you've accomplished?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Balls School District, we have four elementary schools, and we have one middle school. We are most known for our Orangedale Early Learning Childhood Center. And we also have, and we're fortunate enough to have Educare Arizona, which is an amazing model of early childhood education from 0 to 5 years, free at no cost. Individuals do have to live within the 85008 district, and it's a high demand, it's a high quality childhood education. We serve 2,300 students in the district. We have over 19 different languages. We have a robust community of immigrants and refugees. We are richly diverse. We are very grateful for our diversity. We also celebrate that in a multitude of ways. And, for us, it's really about helping grow global thinkers within our school district. We have about 64% Latino, 21% African American, 4%, 3% Native American, and we have 2% Caucasian in our school district. Um, and we are in the midst of, we did a reconfiguration a couple of years ago, and I'm so grateful to understand why reconfigurations are necessary when you're dealing with declining enrollment and also different education trends. So with that said, we did some rebranding in the district, and we created and developed a middle school model. It used to be named Balsz Elementary. Now it is renamed to Pat Tillman Middle School, Tillman Warriors, and that is a 6th through 8th grade learning model. The school is actually being rebuilt and should be complete by the late fall. And we are excited to work to make it a destination middle school in the Phoenix metro area. So that's a little bit about our district and understanding like who we are. Our students are some of the most talented kids who just needs love, support, and nurturing so that they can foster their ability to tap into their learning creativity.
So you said a few things that I want to ask more about. Um, so the Educare Arizona, this is a preschool program that you all
Yeah.
started,
Mhm.
and
It's privately funded. I want to be clear. It is privately funded. It's about 25 educators across the country. And that's why what made me highlight. So if you're ever looking for Educare Arizona, it is located on 48th Street, right next door to our elementary school, Brunson Lee. So it's for 0 to 5 years old.
that is so cool. And that's in my zip code. That's my zip code.
Mhm.
Um, so you also though you didn't really talk about so one of the reasons why I love Chanel is because she is instrumental in this idea called restorative practices. Maybe some people call it restorative justice. But I know that you all have received national attention for your programming, and you also have a restorative practices center. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, let me step back for a second. So, these things don't just happen by chance, and change is not inevitable. It's with hard work, sacrifice, and sometimes chaos that we really work to make things more equitable for everyone. But the discussion clearly started when I brought up student suspension, student discipline when I first joined the board. And that conversation had developed to really empower the administration to really develop a model to help disrupt the trend of disproportionate student suspension. So after some conferences and conversation, Balsz had established a relationship with West Coast Mennonite, who's based out of California. Since we had space in our community center, thank you so much, taxpayers. Thank you for always saying yes to our bonds and overrides. To our Balsz Community Center, we end up moving that particular department over into the community center. This was also during the same time that the ACLU had launched Demand to Learn. Again, another program to help disrupt student suspension and more so an opportunity for the ACLU to want to work with districts before they have to sue them. So in order for us to kind of see that through, we started piloting it at one school. Unfortunately, we no longer have the program within our district, but we had just went through a transition in our district, and our new superintendent is looking to bring those type of restorative practices to the district in its entirety, opposed to just piloting it at one school, but really having that centralized and consistency district wide.
Nice.
There are other things too. I want to highlight Crockett Elementary School, which has also got a lot of state recognition and national recognition for having their mindfulness program. I mean, it's just really, really incredible to watch the principal really own that and really, really take much careful consideration for our students, where essentially students are going into yoga. They are taking time to be peaceful. I've went in the room many times with the beautiful mint green painted walls, the nice scents in the air. And it just gives our children, because, I want to be clear, a lot of your students and my students, Jeannie, suffer from adverse childhood experiences. And that's childhood trauma. That is food insecurity, it is abuse, it's having incarcerated parents, it's having mental illness. And most students of color in the state of Arizona are suffering from 5 or more ACEs. So these are just, some of the things that we've been able to bring to Balsz to help our students and the whole child aspect of their social, emotional, and academic needs.
And I love that. I actually, this would have probably been back in 2015 or 16. I was teaching in Maryvale Middle School, and Crockett Elementary has one of the greatest principals ever, Sean Hannafin. And so he was kind enough to give us a tour of his school and show us the mindfulness room. And it was, I mean, I was on that campus and just kind of holding back tears, but they were really tears of joy, because I was so happy to see this super comprehensive program. Principal Hannafin went over the demographics and the socioeconomic status of students. Right there is the UMOM shelter for women who are fleeing domestic violence. And so a lot of those kids don't have a permanent home. And the lesson was about a raisin, and the wonderful instructor had these children, who normally, if you're talking about first graders, my mom would say they've got ants in their pants, right? And they're kind of all over the place. But she had them really focus in on this raisin and ask them to describe this raisin and think about what it feels to be. I mean, it was just so great. And then he took us into another classroom where the teacher asked all of the students, "Oh, friends, we have visitors today. Can you show our visitors how we do mindful moments?" And they all stopped, and they were so sweet. I mean, there's just a calm on that campus that I recommend to any educator out there to go check out Balsz District for that mindfulness program, for the Restorative Practices Center. And I think that in your 8 years now that you've been on the board, you've accomplished quite a bit. And I heard you say early on, thinking about you as a mother. So I want to switch gears a little bit, because this is, again, why it is important, why school board representation is important.
Well, let me just say this, Jeannie, real quick. One thing that, it's a lot of accomplishments, and I don't know if we would have enough time to really go down the actual list of accomplishments. But the reason that I call these accomplishments is because a lot of it does start at the board dais. It starts at the power, utilizing your power of the mic to talk about these situations, but you also have to have facts with you. So that means that school board members must do their due diligence and do their homework. And when you bring up these factual numbers, to the leadership, then they have to feel compelled, and also listening to your board directive to get these things done, and to come up with the solutions to some of those issues it is that we see. So because of my speaking up about the student discipline, that led to teachers receiving professional development for adverse childhood experiences. That also led to us starting professional implicit bias, professional within our school district. Just a quick couple other accomplishments that really mean a lot to me is that, serving our McKinney-Vento, as you speak of, at our UMOM, which is one of the largest family shelters in the state of Arizona, one of the largest family full shelters. It's off of East Van Buren, and East Van Buren has a history of being a highway, and it's a lot of traffic. Well, we have families who are trying to cross the street to get to school and to be mobile around the community. So I help advocate with the city of Phoenix and through the streets department so that we can implement a new high intensity crosswalk beacon. Yes, very, very pleased. That was a lot of hard work. That was a great initiative and partnership with the city of Phoenix. So I have to give Mayor Kay Gallego a shout out as our city councilwoman. Not only did she help assist with us getting that one hawk, but also Don Cross at the city of Phoenix saw the huge need to implement another hawk. So on East Van Buren, you'll see 2 high intensity crosswalk beacons to help protect our pedestrians, our families who are mobile in the community, so that cars on East Van Buren will have to come to a complete stop on 33rd Street and 36th Street. Those are just a couple of other viable changes and accomplishments, that I've brought to the district, aside from the number of board resolutions that are also feeding into a lot of our strategic plan.
Well, and that's why that was really the reason why I wanted to bring you on today to talk about your most recent resolution about Black Lives Matter. And so right now I am participating in a book discussion with several educators actually throughout the country, and other people who are just interested in making sure that we take care of our kids. There's social workers, there's school psychologists, all kinds of people who are on this book discussion that we have every Monday. And currently we're reading the book for the Guide for White Women Who Teach Black Boys. And, you said something early on about thinking about being at work and wondering if you were going to be called away by your son's school at work. And so the statistics are really alarming about the policing of Black boys that begins in preschool and kindergarten, and how the numbers are skewed. Whereas, it's anywhere between 3 and 5 times the amount of suspensions for
5 to 8 for Black boys, Black girls 5 times. If you look at the National Women's Law Center, they have a couple of reports and studies on dress coded 1 and 2. And they also have a report for Latinas, We Are Not Invisible. And I think that school board members reaching outside of the state of Arizona to get that type of professional development, it really proves and helps you understand the larger scope of your role. I think that initially school board members, when they get elected, it's almost essentially, it's looked upon. The culture in Arizona, what I notice is that the superintendents are in charge. The superintendents are in charge of the school district. The governing board is in charge of the superintendent who runs those operations. So I think some school board members, it's best to reassess our roles and understand what key role we play in actually providing that equitable educational experience. And it's up to us to hold the system, in fact, accountable. But I think that seeking those diverse perspectives, and also purposefully connecting with larger cohorts, national cohorts. I show a lot of credit to my national networks that I belong to because they have helped provide a very strong professional development. But guess what else they showed me? They showed me that yes, you can. Because in Arizona, as a school board member, they always try to restrict you and tell you, no, you can't. But when I saw the bigger picture and the bigger scope and realized I could, it was no stopping me. It was like, let's go for it now. Because you want to know why? We have 30,000 people in the community that are dependent on us to make the right decisions. That's going to help foster our next generation of leaders. So being really present and really speaking up and using the power of your mic and understanding not only what does governance look like for you as a board member, but understanding the school system in its entirety.
Yeah. And so your resolution
Yeah.
was the one that, so I picked up Chanel's resolution, and it was really because of a friend and colleague of mine, Katie Pates, is on the Osborne board. So she was kind of talking to me about the resolution that they either were getting ready to pass, or maybe they had just passed it. I don't even remember the sequence of events. And so I said, hey, I'd like to take a look at that resolution. And she goes, well, just so you know, this is Chanel's resolution. And so so thank you, first of all, for stepping up and being truly, I think, one of the first boards to pass any kind of BLM resolution, and for your leadership in that area. Because as you know, in school boards, and especially here in Arizona, where we don't have like a LA Unified or Chicago Public Schools or New York, we have all these non-unified districts. So we rely on each other a lot for that kind of leadership, so that we can work collaboratively. And I mean, to be frank, we beg, borrow, and steal from each other, and we're happy to do it. So I brought it to my board. One of my board members came back and said, I saw one from another district. Now we're going to come back together this month while we don't have any meetings, and we are going to figure out what we want to include in our resolution. But it's because of your leadership. So I'm curious, because I know there are other board members who could be watching right now. I know there's a great candidate named Jeff Fortney who's watching, another great candidate here for the Creighton School District who's watching. And these are people who have been showing up to their board meetings. They've been reaching out to constituents. They themselves are, well, one's an educator and one's a social worker. And so they're really watching these things right now to see, okay, if I want to do this, how do I do it? And so did you come up against any kind of pushback from your board or from the community or from teachers or anybody in the district for this resolution?
Well, you know what? Let me step back a little bit. I want to step back and bring it back to the first board resolution that I was able to introduce to the board. And the reason for that board resolution was called an anti-hate. This was during a time during the presidential election when there was a lot of hateful rhetoric being spewed that was directed at the students in my district, people that look like me, the students in which we serve. And that was the first, and it was very strong language. Shout out to my sisters in Culver who got that language over to me. Again, being a part of that larger network and being a part of school board cohorts. But what we did, the first thing I did, and I can't believe I still have this sign with me, y'all, but the first thing I did was I let families know that it doesn't matter where you're from, we love you. And I literally called my superintendent, called the principal of the school. I was like, I'm on my way up there. It was like in the winter time. I was like, I'm on my way up there and I'm bringing my sign. But I had that really strong language. And in the language, it really specified Muslim. It really specified immigrant. And at the time, it was very challenging because remember, I'm coming on the board with all this new energy and I'm going to professional development training and everybody else looking at me like, who does she think she is? So during that time, it was a little bit more challenging for me to really pass the true language that the community really deserves to hear. So the first board resolution was an anti-hate resolution. They picked it apart, Jeannie. They picked it apart. They left me with the shell. And you know what? I was like, this is something that is better than nothing. On the flip side, during the time I was serving at the Arizona School Board Association as the president for the Black Caucus. And it was the resolution actually passed in its entirety full language through the Black Caucus back in 2016 or 17, whatever year that was. And that was also important to make that available to school board members. But particularly the Black Lives Matter resolution, It is no secret that Black Lives Matters in the Balk School District. This is something that's board president every single month, every single time. Whether we're raising awareness about mass shootings or school shootings or just injustices and period and period. You can go to Chanel Powe's board report. You can go to governing board Powe members, um, my moment of silence, and you will see that I say their name every month. It's not about necessarily like being a bandwagon. It's about living it, being true to who you are. So being true to who I am raising awareness, and I'm going to bring this up every single month. But I really want to accredit my colleagues in the Dallas Independent School District who initiated the language. Again, belonging to those large networks of progressive school board members that shares this type of pertinent information, which could really help make a difference. Now, Jeannie, it's really important to understand language is bringing it up is a first conversation piece, but it's about the accountability. How is this going to look throughout the system? And I think that you need a few, there are a few things that need to line up. One, you need to have a governing board that is open and that is willing to do whatever it can to fully serve the majority minority students that they serve in the state of Arizona, number one. Number two, you need a prudent superintendent. You need a superintendent who is not only going to follow directive, but who is going to find appreciation for it and implement this work with fidelity and work with the governing board to implement it and work with the teachers and staff members through professional development to really make a clear commitment. And of course, your strategic plan. This is your direction and your mission and vision of exactly what governing boards do. We are establishing the forefront in which we are going to track for that remainder, the remainder of our time, and of course, throughout those next 5 years. So the Black Lives Matter resolution was just really important for us too, because we know that we were over suspending Black boys and Black girls at a disproportionate rate. And that's because of courageous conversations. As a board member, you have to have something called courage. And you also want to be mindful and be very professional by providing factual information to your fellow board members who may not know or who may not be aware. I think now is the perfect time to be in truth and transformation and really hit a reset button on how we view one another, but also how we view systemic policies, practices, and racism in the educational system.
Yeah. I in reading this book, and I think of myself as a teacher who despite my very homogenous upbringing, I mean, I grew up in a really small town that was not diverse. But I've done, I felt, like done all I could to try to educate myself, understand history, and just be a good advocate and ally. But there's always work for me to do. There's always difficult conversations for me to have. I was sharing with you a conversation I had with a family member and how I end up just treating them as middle school students with Socratic questioning so I can try to get them to say what it is that bothers them so much about phrases like Black Lives Matter, or it's uncomfortable for them to hear white supremacy, but when you take a look at it and when you study the history of it, it's true.
It's not
And
even the history of it, Jeannie. It's looking at your structure.
it,
It's looking at your school district. It's looking at who's in your administration, who's in your teaching pool, who reflects the demographic of your district, and why don't they? And
yep.
it's like it's so, and I know a lot of people feel like it's so much bigger than them, but we just have to take responsibility for ourselves, even in our everyday life, Jeannie.
Mm-hmm.
Even in our everyday life of children who's playing over who house. Like I noticed as my son started getting a little bit older, once he got past sixth grade, his white friends wasn't inviting him to spend the night over no more. It was in elementary school where he was more so being invited to spend the night and go to different birthday parties. So when people who don't bear the brunt of racism or discrimination say that it's uncomfortable, what do you think it's like for people who live it every single day? And it don't matter your title. It doesn't matter how much money you have. I had to advocate for my son all the way to his senior year, and I was an elected governing board member. It doesn't matter your socioeconomic status. You have people who are like Oprah who are getting followed inside of Barney's or Saks Fifth Avenue. So it's really about a mindset. It's really about looking within. But I mean, the data has been staring us in our face year after year. So what are we going to do that's going to be different? That's going to provide a better educational experience for the students in which we serve.
Right. So I'm coming up on 4 o'clock. It is almost it's 4:01 now. Okay, I'm bad with time management. And that's why my race is important too, because as many people know, the appointment of school board members, anytime there's a vacancy, happens through the office of the county superintendent. And so it's vitally important that we have strong people who are willing to have those courageous conversations and who are willing to hold people accountable. And Channel Powe, I'll tell you what, you are one of those people. I don't know. I know that this is your last term. Is it okay if I ask you if you're?
You know what? That's okay. Let me tell you something. First of all, I didn't set out to run for office. This wasn't a whole platform thing. It was about someone who was making a difference in the community prior to elected office, helping other people get elected prior to elected office, really understanding the system and inserted myself and committed myself to doing the work. It's a lot of time where folks say, oh, well, school board, it's just a volunteer position. In the state of Arizona, we're not paid, but you have to understand who it was actually set up for. Who was it set up to actually serve in these positions? So the fact of the matter that I've been able to serve for 7 years, I'm honored. I'm grateful. I know this position was not necessarily set up for me, but what I am doing is I'm committed to finish and leaving this district transformed, okay? Because of my work, because of the work of my governing board and I, we've been able to work to help transform this district for the betterment. So my major concern is about finishing strong, upholding my obligation that I said not only to our community, but to our children and to our district. And we're navigating through COVID-19, uncharted territory. So I am here on the front lines, never complaining about how much time that I have to put in, because sometimes you get board members that complain. You want to know why? Because they were not prepared. They bit off more than they can chew. But even if you're in this position now, governing board members, and you feel like you're not doing enough, do more. Every day I look at myself and I feel like I'm doing a lot, and I say, no, Chanel, you're not doing enough. You have to do more. We want to do everything we can to disrupt the trend of our opportunity youth between the ages of 16 and 24 who are disconnected. And we really need to go back to the village mentality and stating that everybody brings value. And it's going to take all of us. Sometimes kids separate from their parents and they have this whole team thing and screw the world, but it's up to us as loving, caring, nurturing adults and advocates to really help show them that they have something beautiful, unique to offer to the world.
Okay, but I still would like to see you run for governor someday. So.
You and a few other people, but I definitely appreciate. I think whatever elected office, I choose. I think that right now, again, my commitment is to finishing out my time successfully and giving my absolute all, as I did before the day I stepped onto the governing board for the Balsz School District.
Well, I'll tell you what, I know that the people of the Balsz School District are grateful for your service. I know I am. I know that, I look to you as one of the leaders when it comes to school board work, and I do borrow heavily from you because I know that you kind of have your finger to the pulse. So thank you for just being such a strong advocate, for caring about our kids in Arizona.
Forever.
Forever. Well, it's been great talking to you today, Chanel. I appreciate you, and stay safe, okay?
Thank you so much. You too, Jeannie. And thank you so much, everyone. And be sure to vote August the 4th.
Good. Yes.
Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.